Welcome to Stribling's New York. I'm your host, Rob Taub, on WOR AM Radio 710 on your digital dial, an iHeart Media company. Stribling's New York is a show about business, culture, and people, and we have a wide range of guests from authors, producers, actors, artists, restaurateurs, as well as people from the world of real estate, like our producer, Tony Simone, who is sitting with me in the studio today, as we are going to bring on our first guest who's on the phone, Brad Meltzer, a world-famous author and also a high school friend of Tony Simone's. So we have a few degrees of separation here. Welcome, Brad.
This is bringing now. Not only are we younger now, but we all officially have hair.
Well, I'm looking at your picture on Twitter, and you describe yourself as the greatest criminal mind of our time. Should we be frightened?
Only if you believe what you read on the internet.
Okay. Well, I'm reading your book right now, House of Secrets, and it's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
So
That's
tell us
I
about.
really appreciate it.
Tell us about the book and what I don't want to give any spoilers, so I'd prefer you to tell us what you can about it.
Sure. No, of course. So the House of Secrets is a thriller, and it opens with a woman who wakes up in the hospital and has no memory. And what they tell her is there's been an accident that's killed her father, who is the host of a conspiracy TV show and chases conspiracies for a living. And the FBI tells her that the last person who was with her father when he was alive was just found dead. And there's an object that's been stuffed into his chest. And that object is a priceless book that belonged to Benedict Arnold. From there, she finds guns in her house. She doesn't know how they got there. She has scars on her body. She doesn't know where they came from. And she realizes that only by solving this murder can she figure out, one, who killed her father, but also who she really is. She's the actual mystery, as you're seeing, and she is really full of secrets. And that's where the House of Secrets opens.
So you brought in some real historical figures in the book, like Benedict Arnold. And from what I've read about you, you do a lot of copious research. So where do you get your ideas for something like this with the Bible? It's not just, it's like sewn in there and buried into somebody.
Yeah, for me, it really comes from that actual research. And I started with, the last moments between George Washington and Benedict Arnold are some of the most heartbreaking in all of U.S. history. Because obviously Benedict Arnold and George Washington were dear friends. And they say when he's betrayed by his friend, it's one of the only times that anyone ever sees George Washington cry. And here's the part that I loved, and I couldn't shake this. It was really the genesis of the book. And that is that when George Washington and Benedict Arnold basically, when it all happens, a letter is delivered by Alexander Hamilton, comes to Benedict Arnold and basically says to him that here's a letter from Benedict Arnold. The letter asks for three things. He says, one, make sure that no one kills my wife, please, because she didn't know that I was a traitor. He says, two, beyond that, he says, don't kill my staff. They didn't know I was a traitor either. And three, also with that, he says, and this is the craziest moment of all, maybe in the history of letter writing, he says to him, do not, under any circumstances, I have one last favor. He says, can you please send me back my belongings and my clothes? This guy just put a knife in the back of George Washington, and he's asking in that moment, can you please send me back my stuff? And the crazy part is, and this is all true, everything I'm telling you is true, is that to this day, nobody knows what is in that baggage that George Washington actually sends back to him. And I won't ruin Chapter 85 of The House of Secrets, but when you read Chapter 85, you will see my theory.
Well, what's interesting is we had Andy Martin on the show who wrote a book about Lee Child's writing process, which is make it up as you go along. And Lee refers to writers like you and Robert Crace as method writers because you do so much research. But to me, I mean, you get such a rich story there because when it's based on actual events, I find it more compelling.
Yeah, for me, and this is just, everyone's different. I know Lee. Lee's a dear friend, a great guy. But for me, I just love when I read. I love when I learn something. That's just what I love. That's how I've always loved. And I feel like I love when I feel like I read something. And we all know now, we know when we read something that's real. And I love when and to me, that's what the fun was here. When I was researching the book, I had this military intelligence officer who I was talking to, and I was asking him, where does the United States get their best intelligence from? And I was like, where's it come from? And he said to me, this is a true story, and I use this in the thriller as well, but he said that years ago there was a dictator, and this dictator was an enemy of the United States. He hated the United States, but what no one knew is that this dictator was secretly working for the United States through one of his top lieutenants, and he was secretly providing information as a spy for us. And I said to him, well, why would he do that? And he said, for the most logical reason of all, for family. He said this top lieutenant of his had a sick child who needed the kind of medical care that only the United States could offer. And as a result, we gave the medical care to this guy. In return, the dictator would give us information on financial investigation we were doing and on keeping weapons out of the hands of terrorists and extremists. And again, I used it in the thriller. It's fictional, make you hopefully turn pages, but I didn't make that part up. That part is all real.
That's fascinating. Now, from all your books, I've noticed you've had contacts with lots of important figures in the U.S. government. How did that come about?
And this is where the book comes from. The House of Secrets is about this guy who hosts a TV conspiracy show who's working as a spy for the government. What I realized over time, I got a call years ago from the Department of Homeland Security asking me to come in and brainstorm different ways that terrorists could attack us. And my first thought was, if they're calling me, we have bigger problems than anybody thinks. Right?
No,
I'm glad they didn't call me.
I talked with Nelson DeMille about this. And
yeah, you're right. We talked about this before, right? I mean, Nelson did it as well. And the thing was I was honored to be part of the Red Cell program. But what I noticed over time is I got a call one day, a letter from Bill Clinton and one from President George H.W. Bush, and they liked my research.
It's amazing.
The Bushes said, and they invited me, and I realized, you know what? I get to go and do these things. I know why. It's because I'm on television, and because people basically they understand. They understand that what I do is entertainment, and so they tell me stories and they share these stories with me. And the result of that is that I get to hear these secrets, and I realize, you know what? I'm the perfect spy. I'm the perfect president. I got invited to a private lunch at the White House in the president's private dining room, and I walked in and out of the White House, and no one looked twice because they're like, oh, that's the guy on television. That's the guy who writes these thrillers, and that has the research about the secret underground tunnels of the White House. No one thinks it's real. And I realized I'm the perfect cover story. So, of course, the House of Secrets, the main character, is a guy who hosts a conspiracy TV show who works secretly for the government. I said, you know what, I don't want to write about anything unless I've lived it anymore. So that's basically the chance I took.
Well, I'm going to get really tangential here, but I love all the biographical stuff about you. Not the fact that you're a lawyer, but that you threw out the first pitch at the Marlins-Mets baseball game and then got into a lightsaber battle with Billy the Marlin.
Fantastic, Rob. So let's talk about that a moment, because that was like one of the highlights of my life.
I know, big Star Wars fans. I remember reading about that.
And what happens is, this is just craziness. What happens is the Marlins asked me to come and do the first pitch, and I'm looking at the games, and they're like, what do you want to throw the pitch for? And I grew up in Brooklyn, so I'm like, they give me all these games, and I see there's a Mets game on there. I'm like, dude, there's no question I got to do it on the Mets game. And then I hone in on that, on the Mets game, and the Mets game basically is not only it's a Mets game, it's on Star Wars night. And I'm like, okay, this is like my entire life coming together, right? Like, this is everything in one foul swoop. And what happens is, not only do I get to go do it, but basically I get to throw out the first pitch, and I tell them, here's what I want to do. I tell them that I'm going to throw out the first pitch, and then I'm going to get into a fight with Billy the Marlin.
And they were good with that.
I don't know if they were good, but they dealt with it.
And who won the battle?
Well, that's the thing is, so it's Star Wars night. I said to them, can we pull this off? I said, I'm going to pull a lightsaber, and if Billy has a lightsaber, we'll, on the pitcher's mound, have a lightsaber battle. And the greatest part of it is, the technology exists today where you can have people put in the real effects. So we had basically a guy effectively in post put in real lightsaber effects. So when I come off the pitcher's mound, here I am, in front of my beloved Mets and my hometown Marlins right now, and I literally pull out a lightsaber, and then you see it in post effects. I literally, it's a real lightsaber, and my kids are watching this, being like, where'd you get a real lightsaber? I'm like, oh, well, I got it from Obi-Wan Kenobi. Who else would I get it from?
I think that's better than going to the White House. In fact,
yeah, I wish my dad got me a
I talked
lightsaber.
to Lee about the Yankees a lot, and I think his biggest thrill was Lee Child going to throw out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think, the funny thing was they just asked me to do that at Yankee Stadium a couple of weeks ago, but the dates they gave me, my son couldn't be there, and my son's a huge sports fan. So even though I want to go to Yankee Stadium and throw, I said, listen, can I get another date? Because I'm not going without my kid. Because the greatest part of the whole thing, all kidding aside, wasn't the lightsaber battle. It was me practicing with my kid in our backyard to make sure. And I know I could throw that pitch. I used to pitch when I was in Little League, but you got to practice, and they don't tell you throw from the mound. Someone told me they may throw from before the mound. Some say they don't let you go on the mound to mess it up. They put you on the grass in front of it. So I basically wanted to know that I could do all the options. Wherever they put me, I don't care. I could do behind the mound. And so me and my kid, my boy, here's my 14-year-old boy, and we're playing catch, practicing for the game. And my dad passed away. He used to want to be a catcher in minor league, to play minor league ball. He was the one who made me a Mets fan. And now here I am with my own boy playing, to go in front of the Mets game. And you can't ask for more than that in life. So obviously it was truly one of the highlights.
Well, you wrote a really beautiful piece about your father that I found last year on Twitter. Can we find that on your website? I'm going to plug you. Our listeners can go to bradmeltzer.com.
Yeah.
And what else can you? The book is on sale on what date?
The book is officially on sale now. It went on sale yesterday. And we're thrilled to get, we've got some of the nicest reviews that we've gotten. Someone called it, one of the best books of the summer. And Tod Goldberg and I just poured ourselves into this book. And I love the fact, especially those who like a good conspiracy and on Father's Day need to buy someone a good conspiracy. This is our chance to really show what it's like behind. What happens is it used to be that like comic books and even like sports on some level, but things were, conspiracies were a fringe thing. Like superheroes were a fringe thing. You did it on, people met in someone's garage. Or for conspiracies, they would meet together and they would put something together like in a little pamphlet they would mimeograph off. And now superheroes are on every television and movie screen, and conspiracies are coming out of the mouths of the people who are running for president, right? I mean, Donald Trump's talking about who killed JFK, and Hillary says she's going to open Area 51 and find out where if there's aliens or not. And everything's mainstream now. And what we do in the House of Secrets is we take you behind the scenes to show you, even though it's a thriller, but you get to see what it's like to really be part of this industry of conspiracy and how these shows and the best part is, of course, pulling apart all the conspiracies that we packed into the book as well.
And will you be at Thriller Fest this year?
I won't be at Thriller Fest just because I'm doing a book tour for the House of Secrets. And then in September, I do another book tour for our kids' books. We're doing I Am George Washington and I Am Jane Goodall. I do a whole line of kids' books of real American heroes that's nonfiction, not like the thrillers. And when I do back-to-back book tours like that, it just really cuts down on what I can do.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And again, our listeners can learn about Brad Meltzer at bradmeltzer.com. And appreciate
you can find it at any bookstore or anywhere you buy books.
It is a great summer read. Great summer read. And we'll definitely have you back on. I definitely want to ask you about the comic books you've written. Because I'm a
yeah, you want me to really nerd out. Listen,
yes.
I love my thrillers, but when I get to write BATMAN and I get to put words in Batman's mouth, I'm wearing my underwear on the outside of my pants that day.
On that note, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Brad.
You're the best. Thanks
Bye.
for being there since all the young grades.